Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Yo, yo, yo! What's cracking lacking, Fantasy Champs? Rick and I are back!
Wow.
We're back together.
Yes, sir.
On the road again. I'm gonna get on the road again.
Bro, so since I missed the Thursday night preview, who did you pick?
I picked the opposite team that you picked. So you picked the Steelers.
Oh, okay.
I picked the Tennessee freaking Titans, and I hope I won.
Well, people will know by the time the show comes out. I kind of hope you won, too, because that would mean Will Levis probably had a decent game.
Yeah. Maybe.
He probably got sacked 15 times and threw 6 interceptions.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, welcome into the pod. My name's Mark Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. We got an interesting. I literally thought you were drinking like one of those like tin can Bud Lights. I was like,
he's getting ready for the show.
It's like he's getting ready, dude. No, he's just drinking out of a plastic water bottle. So there's that.
Yeah, but you don't know what's in this water bottle.
Ew.
It could be Bud Light.
I always have my tea, and you got to spike it with a little bourbon.
Whoa.
Get through the day. Anyway, so
it's what I drink when I'm on the treadmill.
Yeah, nice. We got starts and sits for this episode, though. We're gonna break down starts and sits for each one of our picks for the week. It should be interesting. Rick and I are back together. It feels like it's been eons, but it's been a long week for me anyway. So either way,
yeah,
welcome in. Ready for week 9. Hopefully you enjoyed Thursday night football. That game's, by the way, it's gonna be awful.
Probably.
Yeah. So, but anyway, before we jump into starts and sits, check our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platforms, please leave a review. Share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like, and comment down below any questions you may have for us. Let's get started with the starts and sits.
Let's get it started in here. I just want to say, I want preference something. I took a lot of swings this week. All right. I didn't want to be safe. I took a lot of guys that you probably wouldn't be thinking to start. But listen, we got a lot of bye weeks. We got a lot of injuries. I'm thinking from the perspective of you're in a 12-person league like ours, 2 flex spots. You got some buys, you got some injuries.
Yeah.
Plug and play.
You're gonna strike out like all of the batters on the Arizona Diamondbacks.
If that happens, then you better believe next week I'm gonna take all like top 20 plays.
Yeah. Joe Mixon, start of the week.
Yeah, start of the week, Christian McCaffrey.
All right, I'll start with we'll start with the quarterbacks in the start position. And I'll go with Deshaun Watson versus the Arizona Cardinals. I think there's a lot of people that are probably like Deshaun. I don't even know if he's going to play this Sunday, so I probably should check that. But he's not had the best season for fantasy football.
No.
I think there were some people that were like, oh, maybe.
Well, first 3 weeks he was okay.
Yeah,
and then he got hurt.
22, 13, 23. This past week he had 16% snap percentage.
He threw an interception in the first quarter, and then they took him out.
Hurt. So he is limited today, and I would imagine that he plays on Sunday. We'll see. So keep an eye on the practice reports. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant to say. Keep an eye on the practice reports for Deshaun Watson and see where he goes. But assuming he plays, I think he's a good play this week against Arizona. While he's not been great, I think that Arizona has one of the worst defenses in the league right now, and they give up a lot of fantasy points to the quarterback position, about 18.6. So this could be a really, really good game for Deshaun Watson. I think he could show out and finally have the game that you've been looking for from Deshaun. But the only reason why, because a lot of people might think like, oh, well, I drafted Deshaun Watson really high, and I probably should play him. Well,
there's a lot of people who feel that way. There's also a lot of people that have already dropped him.
Yes. So, but I would start him this week, especially if you need a streaming option. He's available out there.
Yeah, that's fair. Are you worried though that he's not fully healthy? Like he might play, but he's not.
That does concern me.
Because that's what happened with the Colts game. Because I had the same mindset. It was a good matchup against the Colts, and I would have played him if I had him.
Yeah.
And then he threw an interception and was like, I can't throw the ball. And they took him out of the game in the first quarter.
Oh, that's good.
It screwed everybody over. So I'm not saying that could happen again, but just be a little cautious about that. My guy is Derek Carr. I think he's a good stream this week at quarterback. He's not that great for fantasy. He really is kind of mid.
Yeah. But
in 4-point touchdown leagues the last 4 weeks, 15, 17, 17, 17. He has 3 straight 17-point weeks, which in a 4-point league, the way the quarterbacks are, like let's say you have Kirk Cousins for his Achilles, you need a quarterback for this week. You picked up Will Levis, but you really don't want to start him Thursday Night Football. And we'll see. I mean, we're recording this before the show, or before Thursday Night Football, so he might have been good, but who knows.
Yeah.
But anyway, you were like, I don't know. You can plug and play Derek Carr. He's playing Chicago this week. The Bears have the 30th ranked defense against quarterbacks, so that is bottom 3 in the league. It's the best matchup he's had all year. He's had a lot of tough matchups. And the last 4 weeks when he's been decent, he's had decent matchups. So now he finally gets kind of the easiest soft landing spot that he's gotten so far this year. So I think you can rely on him to get you that 17, 18-point week, maybe even a 20-point week if you're streaming. He's obviously not going to be a top 5 guy most likely, but he can be a top 10 guy for you.
Yeah, I like that one. Derek Carr, not bad. Chicago sucks. I mean, they did get that pass rusher. Montez.
They did get, yeah. Is he going to play this week?
I don't know. Probably not, I would imagine. Because the deal is on, Tuesday. But yeah, no, not a bad one for Derek Carr. You do have some hot takes over here.
I do.
Yeah, anyway. All right, let's move to the sit at quarterback. So my sit at quarterback is Geno at Baltimore. Baltimore has had a really good defense this year. They've kind of turned that aspect. Last year, they were in the worst against quarterbacks in the NFL. Now they are one of the best, 12 fantasy points a game to the quarterback position. Geno's going out against this football team, and he's already been a not great start on a week-to-week basis on the NFL season. He has this really tough matchup, and it's in Baltimore. So this is going to be a really tough one for Geno Smith to have success in. And I know he's probably, a guy that you have on your bench that you're flipping back and forth. If you have to stream quarterbacks or you're going back and forth between quarterbacks, it means you don't have some of the best. So if you're thinking about starting Geno this week, I would think against it and go with some of the starts maybe that Rick and I have here, or go back to our waiver wire show and listen to who Rick told you to pick up at quarterback, because I think Geno's just not a guy you want to start this week. Your lineup's gonna bust if you start Geno Smith. So I would sit him.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I would start Deshaun Watson or Derek Carr over Geno this week. My sit of the week, he might not play this week, so I originally had Geno, and then I had to change it because you had Geno. So I do agree with Geno. So I will say we'll double down on Geno. But if he plays this week, I would not start Kyler Murray. Now, you might have drafted him, had him on your IR spot all season. There's a really good shot that he plays this week. I think he was a full participant in practice this week. And we're recording this on Thursday. So on Thursday, he got removed from the injury report. So I think he's going to play this week. I think. If he doesn't, then, it's fine, whatever. You're not playing him anyway. But if he does play this week, do not play him. It's his first game back from a torn ACL. And he's playing the Cleveland Browns, who right now, statistically, have the best defense in the NFL. And versus quarterbacks, they rank second. So they have the second best defense versus quarterbacks in fantasy. I think they've given up the least amount of points this year. They have up their top 5 in sacks. Like, their defense has been really good. Myles Garrett is probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year at the pace that he's at. It's just not a good matchup. The game is in Cleveland as well. It's a lot of negative things. I know you're excited about Kyler Murray. I would be excited about Kyler Murray, especially if you had Kirk Cousins or you had Anthony Richardson or whatever, and you needed a quarterback, you picked them up. This is not the week to do it. Stream for this week, and then next week you can probably feel a little bit better of putting in Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a tough one for Murray. I'm excited to see him play though, finally, and see
Yeah.
what. I mean, this it shouldn't take this long to get back from an ACL injury, to be honest with you. But
Well, he tore it late last
he
year,
he tore it at the same time.
and they did want to be cautious with him because they knew they had no chance this year anyway.
Yeah. All right, let's move to the running back position. I have at start this week Jonathan Taylor at Carolina. You can also maybe squeeze Zach Moss into this if you're looking for a deeper play, because they do like to split. I'm just choosing the guy who I think is going to get the majority of the opportunity, which is Jonathan Taylor. And I think if you have him, you're probably starting him anyway because you drafted him in the third round, second round.
Well, it depends on when you drafted.
Yeah. So, that's true. But Jonathan Taylor, it might be one of those guys you start anyway. But I think, if you're holding him out of your lineup right now, you should probably put him in your lineup because I think this game against Carolina is going to be an easy one for them to run the ball. Carolina's defense blows. It's one of the worst in the league. So, yeah, I'd roll JT out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. I will say, I'm not going to call it a cop out, but he is, I think, like ranked as like RB6 this week. All right, so I'm just saying.
Whatever.
But it is a good one because I do think he's going to light up Carolina.
For sure.
Mine is the Cleveland backfield versus Arizona. I know that's kind of like, do you really want to start Jerome Ford? Do you really want to start Kareem Hunt? Probably not. But if you're in a situation, again, like let's take my fantasy team, for example, the home league in our fantasy league. My running backs might be arguably one of the best in the league, right? I have Eckler, I have A-Chain, I have Gibbs. That's a pretty good trio, right? Would you say?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Well, Gibbs is on a bye. A-Chain is still on IR, last week of IR. So I really only have Eckler, and I don't have a second RB. If I had Kareem Hunt on my bench or I had Jerome Ford on my bench, I'd feel very comfortable with putting either one of those guys in as my RB2 for a single week. Versus the Arizona Cardinals, they are one of the worst against the run. I believe they're bottom 5, but I'll double check real quick. They're one of the worst against the run, and both guys have had success in the same weeks. So if you're scared, like Jerome Ford only had 4 points last week, he was battling an injury. The week before that, oh my gosh, I just sneezed and then didn't sneeze. The week before that, Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford both had double-digit fantasy points. So it can happen on a good matchup.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be one of those good matchups. Arizona versus running backs is 30th in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So again, bottom 3. I think both guys could cook. If Kyler Murray does not play in this game, this could be a blowout too for the Browns. With Clayton Tune in there at quarterback. So could be a really positive game script as well. I'd be okay with either guy. I think they could both get double-digit fantasy points this week and be a good plug-and-play.
Okay. Yeah, not bad. All right, my sit at running back this week is Dameon Pierce versus Tampa Bay. Tampa may not be able to stop much of anything else but the run, but they do stop the run. 14.6 fantasy points a game to the running back position. They are a top 5 tough matchup in fantasy football for running backs. With a guy like Dameon Pierce who already hasn't really been great on the season, if you're on, because the reason why we put some of these guys on this list, if you're not starting Dameon Pierce at this point, the reason why we put some of these guys on this list is because, you're running into bye weeks now. And so some of these guys you haven't had to start, you kind of have to start now. And so for me, I would look at Dameon Pierce as a sit this week because, if you were starting him in your lineup this week because of a bye, you're probably going to get a bust this week. And if there's a better guy out there, like you can go look at a Darrell Henderson, for example, then I would go after that guy and start him over Dameon Pierce. And Henderson might be available in your leagues on the waiver wire. But Pierce is just, against this defense, I don't want to take the risk on it. And if you absolutely have to because there's no running backs and it doesn't work out, then whatever. But I wouldn't start Dameon Pierce against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, no, I love that one. He was my top choice this week for any sit, but I saw that you already had him, and I was like,
boom.
And I think he's arguably droppable. I had him as a start last week, and I said this was the last week, and because he's playing Carolina, who was 32nd against the run, and he only scored 4 fantasy points. So Dameon Pierce is dead to me. I understand that you might not want to drop him because of injuries and stuff, but I think he's pretty much droppable, sadly. My sit at running back is Deonta Foreman versus the Saints. this past week we kind of saw what the backfield's probably going to look like until Khalil Herbert gets back, which is really gross. It was a complete split between him and Roschon Johnson, and Roschon Johnson got more targets. So Foreman got a couple more carries, but they both kind of got the same amount of carries. Foreman only had 4 points against the Chargers, and that was against a team that is not great against running backs. The Saints rank 4th against running backs, so it's a really tough matchup in a split backfield. There's the Foreman people out there. You were partly on that train last year.
Yeah.
There's someone in our league that is on the Foreman train. Right? There's people that like Deonta Foreman. Yeah. Honestly, there was weeks that he was okay to start. Honestly, against Minnesota and Vegas, he wasn't awful. But going forward, he's not that guy, especially in a split backfield in a tough matchup.
Yeah, for sure. Foreman is he's one of those weirdos, dude. Like,
it's true. He'll have a random week where he'll get you like 20
week
points.
Where he gets like 25 points, and you're like, what?
It's because it's like Gus Edwards this week. I think got like 25.
Yeah,
he's a goal line back, so if they have opportunity to score touchdowns on the goal line, he could get like 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. I have at start of the week a one Zay Flowers, and pretty much at this point we got Odell Beckham smashing his helmet on the sidelines. We have Rashad Bateman kind of just being invisible. He's on the all cardio team. And Zay Flowers, who just runs around in circles in the slot until he gets open and Lamar Jackson chucks it to him. He's literally, outside of Mark Andrews, the only other receiving option that has any kind of success in this offense. And they have a very good matchup coming up against the Seattle Seahawks. I think Flowers could come into this game, have a lot of success early, and get a lot of targets. And I think if he's been averaging I want to say 12 to 13 points a game this year, which is pretty good. It's all right.
Yep.
So I think if you want a plus matchup for a guy who, maybe is in and out of your lineup, this would be the plus matchup to put him in and get him into your starting lineup this week. If you had Zay Flowers and he was sitting on your bench and you have a bye week this week and you're sliding Zay Flowers in, I'd feel confident about Zay Flowers. So start him over a lot of different guys. I love Zay Flowers. Ride with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Flowers is also due for a big week. He's had some really solid weeks, but he hasn't had a monster week yet. And it's probably because he only has 1 touchdown this year. I feel like he's due for a week where he gets 1 or 2 touchdowns and just explodes. And it could be this week.
Yep.
Now, here's probably my hottest take. This might be my hottest take of all of our starts and sits this season.
2023?
All right, so take it with a grain of salt.
Oh, boy.
I'm going to say Demario Douglas. I'm saying Demario Douglas. Pop Douglas as we know him in New England. You might not even know who he is, or you might have barely heard of him.
Why should I start?
I'll tell you why. We obviously know about the injuries and buys, so you probably are in a tough spot at your flex, maybe even wide receiver position. You're probably okay at wide receiver position, but we're talking flex here. We're talking PPR leagues here. Demario Douglas, rookie wide receiver, obviously injuries to Kendrick Bourne. Devontae Parker looks like he's not going to play. Demario Douglas has already, before the injury to Bourne, was developing as the wide receiver 1. He's going to have the opportunity now to be the full wide receiver 1. Last 2 weeks, 62% snap percentage. This week, 77% snap percentage. Week 7 against Buffalo, he had 6 targets. Week 8 against Miami, he has 7 targets. So the targets are going up. The receptions are going up. He could have a really good PPR week. So in the last 2 weeks where he's been a starting receiver, he has 11 and 7. Okay, so that's not anything crazy.
Okay.
But it shows potential. And against Washington, who is 32nd against receivers, they are dead last in the NFL and just traded away their 2 best defensive players on the pass rush. They arguably have the worst defense in football now. It is an opportunity for Douglas to have a breakout game. And I don't even know if he's going to have a breakout game. I think the possibility is there for sure.
Yeah.
But even if he has kind of what he's been doing the last couple of weeks, I think he probably gets a little more targets with the Kendrick Bourne injury out and could still have a good PPR floor of 11, 12 fantasy points and be a decent flex with a chance to have a breakout game and have 15, 16, maybe even 16 plus.
Okay. I like that. You better hope Pop does that.
I do. Well, if he doesn't,
And I hope Pop plays well because I'm rooting for him. But it sounds like you're a Pats fan rooting for.
there is a little bit of that element because I like Pop Douglas a lot, but yeah, he's against Washington. That's a 30-second against receivers.
Yikes.
And he's the wide receiver 1. So I'll take that matchup.
Okay, let's move to the sits. I got Josh Palmer at the Jets. The Jets are good defensively, generally speaking. They play very good defensively and hold. They really just hold up the offense enough so that Breece Hall can score a touchdown. It's like okay, Breece.
And Zach Wilson can drive down the field in 25 seconds.
Who is it? Who's their offensive coordinator? Nathaniel Hackett. Hackett just spends his entire week drawing up the one bust-like run. Like the one big run.
Yeah, he's got he doesn't even draw it up. It's all Breece Hall.
Yeah, it's true. But anyway, so the New York Jets have a really good defense. And a lot of people flirt with Josh Palmer because he's a second wide receiver with Justin Herbert and all of that stuff. And I think this week in particular, you saw the rise of Mr. Quentin Johnston.
Whoa.
Mr. QJ. You got some targets this week.
QJ.
And he actually looked pretty good. I think he's going to end up being the second wide receiver, which makes Palmer the third guy. And he's one of those players that you kind of can the second or third wide receiver on a team that you can kind of play against good matchups and hope for the best when you really don't have any other matchups to play. But going up against the New York Jets, it's just not a good matchup. It's not a week that you want to take the risk on Josh Palmer. So if there is another option out there on the waiver wire, I would even take a Jaden Reed. I hope I say his name right. Is it Jaden Reed? Yeah.
Yeah.
From Green Bay. I would take the shot on him over starting Josh Palmer this week versus the Jets. So I think it's going to be a tougher week for him. And if he is the second receiver on the outside, he's going to get what's the name of the corner? Their second corner. He's really good.
It's another Hall, right?
No, I don't think it's Hall. But either way, their second
DJ
corner.
Reed.
Say it again.
DJ Reed.
Yeah. So he's really, really good. He's probably going to be on Josh Palmer for most of the game, swapping between him and Quentin Johnston, which means Josh Palmer's not going to have a good game. So I'm going to be out on Josh Palmer this week against the Jets.
I agree. That's a good one, and I'll probably touch base more on that later. But mine's Tyler Lockett. In the past, I have had Tyler Lockett on the show as a sit, and he ends up biting me in the butt. But this week, I had him on. I think it was against. It was earlier in the season. I had him on the show.
Yeah,
and he had 8 or 9 points, and he was only okay.
Yeah.
He's a boomer bust player at this point in his career, and with JSN and Metcalf there, it's not like he's super great. He is coming off a big time week against the Browns, but it makes me feel even better about sitting him because he's been on such a big week. He's playing Baltimore this weekend, as you kind of brought up earlier about Geno Smith. Very tough matchup. The Ravens have been very good defensively this year, and have been much better against the pass. So I don't think the Seahawks are going to have a big time week this week. And if they score touchdowns and make big plays, I would rather bet on a guy like DK Metcalf than Lockett. And JSN is now finally being involved in the offense too, so that might take away a couple opportunities from Lockett. So I don't think Lockett sucks. I don't think he's going to have a bad week, but I'm probably looking at another 8-point week from him.
Yeah, not a bad set this week against Baltimore. We like this Baltimore-Seattle game. And the Chargers-Jets game. How about that?
No.
All right, let's move to the tight end position quickly. I love Dalton Kincaid, and I'm not going to lie, bro. If he has another week where he puts up more than 10 to 15 fantasy points,
you're all in.
Top 5 tight end rest of the season.
Okay.
He finally got the opportunity. Dawson Knox is hurt. He's going to be out at least for a little bit. And he's had 2 really good performances. I think he's had about an average of 7 to 9 targets a game in the last 2 or 3 games. So Josh Allen is finding him on the field. If you saw the game against the Patriots and if you saw the game this week that they played, some of the catches that Dalton Kincaid makes, it's clearly better than Dawson Knox. And he's clearly the second best receiving option on the football team. And I didn't think it was going to.
Okay.
I didn't think Gabe Davis is okay, but Dalton Kincaid's pretty good. So if things continue to trend in this direction, Kincaid can be a very, very, very good tight end rest of season. If you got him last week on the waiver wire, hallelujah for you, because you got a steal. I have a feeling that we are going to be pacing out from week 7 to week 17 or week 18 all off season talking about Kincaid.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
I do agree with that.
So I love Kincaid this week against Cincinnati. I think you should continue rolling him out in your lineup. He should be a week-to-week start at this point, and hopefully he has a good game. But I'd start him.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mine is Kyle Pitts. He's been disappointing this year, but he's still had a couple decent games, 15 and 14 in the middle there, week 5, week 6. Mm-hmm. But overall, been disappointing. You might not want to start him. But he's playing Minnesota this week. It's one of the best matchups that you could get for a tight end. And now Desmond Ridder is out, Taylor Heineke in. I think that's might be a slight upgrade at quarterback. It's partly how I feel about Desmond Ridder. Mm-hmm. But even if you don't think it is an upgrade, it's a very good matchup. But it is interesting to see because if he continues to have like 5-6 point weeks with Heineke at quarterback, I feel like it shows that it's really an Arthur Smith problem, which I do think it mostly is. But there have been plays to be made for Kyle Pitts where Ridder just overthrows or underthrows him, or even plays that Pitts has made. That one where he caught it behind his back, like Ridder has just been brutal this year. So with Heineke in there, I'm not saying Heineke's a great quarterback, but he's at least a stable backup. So I think we'll see how it plays in a good matchup, and I'll take my chances on that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. A sit at tight end for me is Luke Musgrave. A lot of the fantasy community jumped the gun on Musgrave because there really isn't a whole ton of passing options on the Packers to go after. Mm-hmm. Christian Watson's about it. And so people are like, oh, Luke Musgrave could be really good. And I think in the future he might be really good. But as of right now, for me, he's on my crap list. And he's going up against Los Angeles. You might think like, oh, Los Angeles gives up a lot of fantasy points to the tight end position. They're pretty good. This is a good matchup for Musgrave. I just don't think he's going to get the target share. And it's like if you start him and you luck out and he catches a touchdown, congratulations. But I would be absolutely stunned if he gets more than 3 targets in this football game. And I don't want to chase after guys who don't get targets.
Yeah, I mean, even if he gets like 4 targets, like the Packers suck. and that was the thing that he does have some opportunity, but Jordan Love, since his hot start, has been awful. So there's that. My sit of the week at tight end, and the last guy we'll talk about here is Gerald Everett versus the Jets. Kind of what you said about Josh Palmer. The Jets defense has been really good. It's a tough matchup. People are probably really high on Everett. He's had a couple good weeks here since the Mike Williams injury. And I said after the Mike Williams injury that he could be a good serviceable tight end for you. And he has been. But this week, I just don't love the matchup.
Okay. Is that it for starts and sits?
I think that's it.
All right. There you go, guys. Starts and sits for week 9. Very interesting episode. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Get the starts and sits in there. Be sure to head down to the comments and ask us questions because we love questions. Thank you for listening, guys. Check us out on the next episode, Trade Targets.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.